In the early 1990s, the BBC's very survival was in doubt. Under threat of privatization, it desperately needed to fight back in a bitter ratings war with ITV, with only EastEnders to take on Coronation Street and Emmerdale. So 10 years ago, the BBC unveiled a secret weapon in an obscure Spanish village. It was the biggest press launch in the corporation's history. The BBC was risking millions on a brand new soap full of sun, sex, and sangria. Only behind the facade of smiles, things were crumbling.
There was, litres of blood and pounds of flesh all over southern Spain.
You shut your mouth! Don't you speak until you are spoken to.
No idea what went on up there. People's lives were destroyed by it.
Get out!
And I said, I've just seen the first stuff on tape. And he said, how's it looking? And I said, we're in trouble.
Everything's going to be just hunky-dory.
This is the story of building a city in the sand and the power struggles that brought it down. Eldorado was the dream child of writer Tony Holland, famous for Z-Cars and District Nurse. He had already helped save the BBC once with a huge hit based on a world he knew.
Well, the character sprang from my early childhood. The idea was that I would take my family, and it was about kinship and community and a local way and streets that one knew. And this concept of a square suddenly seemed instinctively the right thing to do. And I knew it would work.
This, my sweet, is a letter from my solicitor telling you that your husband has filed a petition for divorce. Happy Christmas, Ian.
During Christmas 1986, 30 million people watched EastEnders, a record audience for British television. It became the cornerstone of BBC One's schedule, and 5 years later, EastEnders was still doing the business. But it wasn't enough. With the government keeping a watchful eye on the BBC, the corporation felt it needed bigger audiences to justify the licence fee.
They had to be seen to increase their audience share by 1.5% to prove to the government that they were a viable organisation, that they could justify any increase in the licence fee, and just generally deserve to continue to exist as the BBC.
It was about building the foundations on BBC One when you could see a very competitive era coming, trying to create something which would inevitably become a major franchise for the channel.
So the BBC came up with a plan. They would have a competition to find the best idea for a new soap opera. Tony Holland thought he had just what they wanted in the bottom of a drawer. It was something he had dreamt up while walking to a nudist beach.
I was on holiday in Mallorca, and I was on a walk. And suddenly I saw that I was coming to a piazza. There was news agents, bars, a little bed and breakfast, and it was an entire community, a sort of Britain in miniature.
Taking that moment in Mallorca, Tony used it as a setting for his new soap opera to explore the idea that the only place a Brit can be a Brit today is abroad. And he called it Little England. Hoping to repeat the earlier magic, he brought in fellow EastEnders scriptwriter, former Barrow boy, Tony Jordan.
The original concept, which I thought was great, it was like a siege mentality. Felt like Khartoum or Zulu or something.
about these Brits in this little fort with all these foreigners all around them and trying to survive and make a new life for themselves. And it was about dreams of a fresh start and getting away from the rain.
I was saying the North-South divide lives next door to each other, and these people were happy here, and they didn't have to make an effort to mix in.
Several ideas were submitted and whittled down to a short list of 3. But would the BBC Mandarins chance so much on a soap set in an expat community in Spain? In November 1991, 3 BBC executives led by BBC One controller Jonathan Powell met in secret to choose the new soap that was supposed to save their bacon. The decision was unanimous. Little England emerged victorious. Tony would work with producer Julia Smith, co-creator of EastEnders. As he wrote, she would be in charge of everything else. They had been long-time friends till now. They were given just 6 months to get one of the most ambitious television productions ever up and running. First, they decided to build an entire village from scratch, halfway up a remote Spanish hillside. It was miles away from the nearest city, Fuengirola. At a cost of £2 million, the set had to have an authentic old town, complete with Church Square, a shopping plaza, and an apartment complex. It had taken 8 months to build EastEnders Albert Square, and that was in the BBC's own backyard. Here, they had half the time. Next, Julia, the producer, needed to hire the actors. She had a reputation for casting unknowns, like Leslie Grantham as Dirty Den in EastEnders. She was about to try the same again. Out in Spain, German student Kai Mora was selling timeshares and had never acted before in his life. But a friend persuaded Kai to go for an audition.
And in the car, he gave me the script. This is actually when I saw the script the first time. And he went, oh, read it. So we were sitting in the car, and it was all going like this. So we were reading the script, and it was in English as well. I was just like, oh, my word. So we arrive on set. It's all big, and it's all building works going on. It's all very odd. So he introduces me to this lady, Julia Smith, and I read with her a happening that took all of 5 minutes. At the most. I wrote with her once. That was it. And then I got the part.
6 other unknowns were also brought on board, but some parts were given to seasoned professionals, like Campbell Morrison, cast as expat father of 2, Drew Lockhead.
I was a jobbing actor, and all of a sudden I was offered a 3-year contract to go out to Spain and to do a brand new soap opera. I mean, in some ways, I was looking at that as my pension, you know. As most of us were. We thought, you know, it's the BBC, it's going to run and run and run and run.
Patricia Brake's part of Drew's wife, Gwen, was created with her in mind.
For the part to actually be offered to you, it's extraordinary. It took a lot of thinking about, actually, because I knew it would change everything. It would change my career enormously.
Veteran thespian Faith Kent was chosen for busybody Olive King.
We were all like a bunch of kids, very excited, not knowing what on earth was going to meet us the other end, and it was great to be part of something so new and with such a potential.
In April, the entire cast flew to Spain and met up in a hotel for a read-through. It was now just 3 months to transmission.
Being actors, we got there interested and excited and optimistic.
Oh, the read-through? Yeah, that was great. First of all, I didn't know what a read-through was. And everybody was like, whoa, they were all like speaking so nicely. And then it was my turn with this thick German accent going, what the.
Some of the experienced actors started to get a bit edgy.
It was the most strange experience because we had people there who could have been good actors, but did not have the master of the English language, and why should they? I couldn't speak Swiss, and I certainly couldn't speak Dutch.
I was very worried that there were too many inexperienced and, in fact, rank amateurs that had been selected.
At the end of the read-through, Julia Smith gave one of the directors a note to give to me. And the director came over quietly and said, I think you're a bit over the top, and I hope you're not going to do it like that because it's very broad Scots and it's not very good. To which I replied, I am the least of your worries.
I think that was the first time that I got a sinking feeling in my stomach. I had to sort of boost my morale and say, come on, no, this is going to be wonderful, come on. Yeah, it's going to be good, it's going to be great, we'll make it work.
We all said, we can do it, we can do it. It's been worse than this before, that'll come into a huge success.
So everything seemed like it was going to be fine. But now politics entered the brew. In 1992, barriers were tumbling across Europe. So Julia, under pressure from higher-ups, told Tony to bring the non-British characters to the fore and make it more continental. But the changes left Tony struggling.
They said I had to find a way so that they could have speaking parts. And you didn't know what language you were writing in. It should have been their natural language, but it wasn't. You know, everybody spoke English, and they don't. But they were asking me to distort the truth.
As the storyline started landing on scriptwriter Tony Jordan's desk, he was bemused by the changing landscape.
We'd have a script meeting and we'd all sit around and we would talk about stories and we'd talk about the characters and talk about everything else. And then suddenly there'd be a Danish family. And you think, Danish? But it's fine, it's okay, it's not a problem, go away, I was fine. Oh, there's probably a big story coming through that we don't know about. And then 2 weeks later we'd have another script meeting and everything was going fine, and we just got our heads around the Danish character or whatever it was, and suddenly there was a French family. And then 2 weeks later, we've got a German character. And I remember, driving in with another writer, joking about, what was going to be there this week. We were going to have a family from Kazakhstan, or what was going to happen. And if Little England was about a siege mentality, about Brits abroad in a fort, surrounded by the foreigners and trying to survive, then inviting foreigners inside the fort didn't seem to make much sense.
Confirmation that his vision was slipping away came when Tony was told that Little England wasn't an appropriate title.
BBC Scotland, they said, wouldn't do something called Little England. Well, I thought they missed the point and the irony of it. But, finally we had to accept the title we got.
Little England became Eldorado. As the original idea slipped away, Tony found himself trying to create a world he didn't believe in, trying to create a world that, unlike EastEnders, he didn't know.
It was all to do with reflecting Europe as it was, but it had no depth. It was just Euro porridge.
With 2 months to go, they had to start filming to have episodes ready to transmit 3 times a week. But the village still wasn't ready, which was something of a problem for director Jeff Feld.
We organised ourselves so that we'd use the sets that were available for 3, 4, 5 weeks programmes ahead. So for the actors in particular, this was a very difficult process to be working on so many episodes at one time.
The actors found themselves on a relentless treadmill.
Rain forecast all this week.
Churning out scene.
Guess what? I'm really starving.
After scene.
We're going to have to do something about your Julio Anglaises.
After scene.
Can't stop. I haven't done the all-time yet. Snort! Snort, you went away!
There was no time to consider what was right, what was wrong, what needed changing. All that we could see was getting the programme on the air, nothing else.
It's no good arguing with you. I just won't listen.
No, because every other word you say is another lie.
It was very, very nerve-wracking because we did only one take. At the time, I thought this was amazing. We must be good. We must be good. It's one take. Until finally I found out that basically it boils down to the fact that if there's no microphone hanging into the frame, if there is nobody standing in the background, if there's nobody making a noise, and the lines are sort of there and audible, then that's great because we have no time.
As things got more and more chaotic on set, the production turned to Julia for help. Only she was starting to feel under siege from the mammoth production.
Julia had a reputation for being difficult, and everyone knew that. And sometimes she'd be very forbidding, and if you approached her sometimes with a problem, she'd adopt, just go and do it, just go and do it. And so in the end, problems weren't always brought to her.
To make matters worse, the long-standing partnership of Julia and Tony began to crumble under the strain.
We always had skirmishes, but then we were famous for that. But this time, we were in a much trickier situation. And we'd always stood by each other on that. Now we were at a point when we couldn't. So, I mean, we attacked each other because there was no one else to blame.
As the drama unfolded behind the scenes, the BBC publicity machine shifted into high gear. With transmission 1 month away, the corporation held its biggest press event ever, and over 50 journalists descended on the Costa del Sol.
I think it was probably the most hyped programme that I can ever remember, and it was launched in, in a great feel-good atmosphere, no expense spared. On the first night we were there, we were sort of treated to a very sumptuous paella Spanish banquet in the grounds of the hotel, overlooking the sea. Plenty of glasses of sangria, and we were feeling quite well disposed towards a soap opera.
It was so important to the corporation that BBC One boss Jonathan Powell himself had flown in to promote his pet project.
But it will actually start transmitting in 3.5 weeks' time on July the 6th. This is a piece of quality entertainment.
Tony Holland wanted to be somewhere else.
The press conference was something I really wish I hadn't been invited to, but I was highly pressured. All the brass had flown over, and there was to be a do. And I thought, well, in for a penny, in for a pound. I shall just have to do it, and I'll, as my agent said, kick high and smile.
Behind the razzmatazz and smiles, the actors were having first-night nerves.
It was quite scary because I had no idea whether the programme was any good or not. I really didn't. It was very important that this got off to a good start. And it felt difficult because one had to be up front and it's going to be wonderful, and aren't we lucky to be doing it?
We were basically told this is going to be the next big thing. It's going to be bigger than EastEnders. Okay. And of course you wanted to believe. Of course you wanted to believe. You were in it, you wanted to believe, yes, this is going to be good.
Did you enjoy it?
The BBC felt totally confident. There was not even the question of, but what if it doesn't work? What if it's a failure?
Not everyone was so confident. Scriptwriter Tony Jordan decided to get onto the set and watch some filming to find out for himself.
I ended up being down an alleyway at the back of a donkey, so I was actually staring at a donkey's arse. But through the back legs of the donkey, I could see a monitor, and they have monitors so that as stuff's being shot, you can see what they're shooting. And I managed to squeeze past the donkey just enough to catch a glimpse of what was being shot. And I still remember the scene vividly to this day.
I'm hopeless, aren't I?
Look, so long as it's warm and wet, that's all that matters.
I'm not interrupting anything, I hope.
So, what can we do for you?
The furniture still hasn't arrived.
You're on the catch.
Top priority is a bed.
And I just thought, oh, fuck. This didn't bear any resemblance to everything that we talked about. This wasn't the show that Tony Holland had talked about, wide-eyed and excited. I lost everything, all the excitement and all the enthusiasm that I have, that we spent all those months talking about, just went in an instant, in 10 seconds of tape, because I realised that it wasn't ever going to be what was. It was never going to be on screen what was up here. It was awful. It was just bloody awful.
Only it was too bloody late. The show had to go on. The all-important piece in the armoury against ITV was ready. For the BBC, the 6th of July 1992 really mattered. Eldorado had to succeed. At 7 p.m, head-to-head against a special edition of Coronation Street, Eldorado went on air. Ranged against Corrie's regulars were the local baddie, Marcus Tandy.
Hey, morning, Doc.
Expats, the Lockheads.
Oh, rain forecast all this week. At home.
This is home.
Colourful Trish and her toy boy lover, Dieter.
Look, I work bloody hard for my money, and what for? So you can spend it on some pasty-faced little scrubber from, where was it? Wolverhampton?
Spinster and busybody, Olive King.
Sacrilege.
Now, you shouldn't say that. My faith is very important to me.
Restaurateur Bunny and his new friend.
This is Fizz, my wife.
All right.
As well as 15 other characters. And the concept of foreign languages without subtitles.
Hej skat, hvad laver du her?
Jeg vil bare sige, der frokost lige om lidt.
Vi bliver nødt til at spille det her spil færdigt. Isn't that so, Drew?
Okay. The next day, executives at Television Centre were relieved to learn that despite Coronation Street, over 8 million viewers watched the first episode.
A soap has a key role to play in any schedule. Popular drama can draw people to a network early in the evening, and you hope that they will stay, and you can introduce other programmes to them on the back of the soap. It works superbly with EastEnders, and Eldorado was one of those audience connection points which would draw people to the channel and encourage them to stay with us.
Now everyone waited to see how much support the new mega soap would get from the press.
The Independent, always interesting for a soap. The central figures may be drawn from a broad spectrum, but they don't resemble real people anywhere near as closely as they resemble characters from a soap opera on holiday.
I wasn't quite ready. It was vitriolic. I mean, they were pretty horrendous.
The Guardian said that Eldorado goes straight for the young, drunk vote with a directness that leaves you winded. It has the look of a situation comedy whose laughter track has been lost.
They weren't thinking. They were just, let's hit, let's hit, let's hit. And they did hit, and it did hurt.
Telegraph was interesting. They said, as for sun, sex and sangria, Eldorado looks set to be about as sexy as a cold suet pudding.
I didn't give a toss about that, to be honest. I really didn't give a toss. I mean, when someone says you're bad, okay, you're bad, and you just think, well, that's your opinion.
The Sun, our friends at The Sun. The characters are such rip-offs of Albert Square and other soap hits that viewers risk being done for receiving stolen goods. That's a tad unfair.
I don't think even then, even when the reviews were bad, that we worried unduly. We just thought, this is what happens to soaps, and we'll prove them wrong, and eventually people will watch us, and it'll work. And anyway, they've spent all this money. We've been promised 2 years, or we thought we had 2 years. The Titanic will turn.
There was a turn, only it was a turn for the worse. At the end of the first week, only 5 million viewers returned for more. Week by week, the figures continued to fall. Until 6 weeks in, and only 2.8 million washed up on the shores of the Costa Eldorado. Viewers abandoned the sun, sea, sex, and sangria in their millions. The BBC wanted to prove that Eldorado could succeed. The first head was about to roll. It was the producers.
I remember arriving on set one day and someone said, Julia Smith's left. I remember that. It was kind of like, where were you when JFK, you know? I thought, what? She's left? What do you mean she's left?
And then we were told eventually that Julia wasn't well and that we would be having a new producer, that she needed to rest.
I felt sorry for her because she was always committed, she was always dedicated, and she did work very hard at the beginning to try and make this program work, and I was very sad the way it happened to her and how it affected her. I mean, I don't think she ever really recovered from what happened to her.
Tony Holland would stay for now.
I was very shocked that she was sacked. I felt I had to stay, but she wasn't there.
Tony would now have to work with Julia's replacement, former EastEnders producer Corinne Hollingworth. They were charged with winning back the millions of viewers the BBC needed.
There were such obvious problems with it that I couldn't make it any worse.
You shake my nose and you rattle my brain. Too much of love drives a man insane. You broke my will. Oh, what a thrill. Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
Some of the acting was execrable. I couldn't believe that they had gone ahead with having scenes played in foreign languages with no subtitles. It didn't know what it was and what it wanted to be. Was it a light, frothy sitcom, or was it actually going to be about character?
Oh, excuse me.
You said you mended it. What am I going to do?
There were some brave decisions. I think the whole Fizz and Bunny issue, to have an elderly man with a young woman like that.
You better stay in bed till then.
The basic relationship was flawed, and on screen looked unpleasant, looked unhealthy, and there was no way, I didn't think, that the audience was ever really going to engage with that particular story.
Is there anything, special you like?
I'll leave it up to you.
17-year-old Kathy Pitkin, who played Fizz, was sacked. But that was only the start. Corinne set her sights on the rest of the cast as their contracts came up for renewal.
Mass slaughter!
A gloomy silence descended on the set as the cast waited nervously to find out who was on Corinne's hit list.
There was a very morbid sort of feeling around because nobody really spoke. And then it was my turn as well, so I walked in. And I was told that basically my character Dieter would not teach windsurfing in the winter.
Six others followed in Kai's footsteps, their dreams of soap stardom in tatters.
It was a little sad that day. It was a little sad. There was a lot of people in tears. But what can you do?
At his flat in Fuengirola, Tony Holland felt vulnerable and depressed as his creation floundered.
I used to walk around the balcony and the room, sort of trying to think of ways where something could be re-edited, but it got more and more hard to make it convincing. You know, that wasn't my little England. There were moments when I just couldn't handle it, when I thought, you know, you can't give of your best here.
Tony resigned and returned to Britain, a broken man.
He wrote to me a very articulate letter about why he just didn't feel that he could carry on. He was so allied with what it had been, and we were trying to mutate it into something else. And you either have to commit 150%, or you have to get out. And I think he just didn't have the stamina.
Corin now had to try and make other changes while still producing 3 episodes a week.
It's a wheel that just keeps turning, and we didn't have the ability to be able to say, let's stop production for a period of time altogether and let's redress, and regroup. So it was really about trying to make changes while the whole thing was still running.
She made vast improvements with the writing. The writing improved practically overnight, and I think she flung a lot of the scripts back.
It felt like we'd started to turn round, really, from the minute Corin came. That great ship was going in the wrong direction might actually now turn in the right one.
After a disastrous start, the mood became more buoyant. There was a new attitude, new storylines, new characters. The ratings began to recover. The BBC was in a fighting mood and launched an offensive to support their multi-million-pound investment.
The BBC keep telling us now that we're going to get this for a year no matter what happens. Surely that's treating the viewer with contempt.
No, I think it would treat the viewer with contempt and the licence payer with contempt if we, on the basis of a certain amount of reaction in the first few weeks, pulled the series and virtually threw away the money that we'd invested in Spain.
But how much longer are you prepared to go on working on it if you don't get the kind of ratings that you think it should be getting?
Well, I'm actually confident that in 6 months' time or a year's time, the ratings that you do expect from this kind of show will be there. I'll bet you a quid.
The BBC was about to lose that quid. The power was shifting at the corporation. John Burt was to become the new Director General. The emphasis would now be on the high ground with original and distinctive programming to win the licence fee. And there were rumours that Burt didn't think Eldorado was original or distinctive enough. As Burt took the reins, the controller of BBC One, Jonathan Powell, the man who had commissioned Eldorado, the man who continued to stand by it during its trials and tribulations, decided to leave the BBC. He insisted it had nothing to do with Eldorado.
When Jonathan Powell left, I thought that was the death knell. That was our last bastion of defence, our last supporter, I think. And I thought, yeah, that's it. We're going down. We're going to go down fast.
News soon reached Spain that a new BBC One controller was taking over to pursue Burt's vision.
Well, today the BBC announced who's been picked as the new controller of BBC One. He is Alan Yentob, who's currently doing the same job for BBC Two. Now, one of his first decisions will be whether to back or to scrap Eldorado.
You can say about Eldorado that, oddly enough, if you wanted to do a soap, you'd be mad to set it in Spain. That's one we could almost paradoxically call it innovative as an idea, and it failed.
But a huge investment had been made. Viewing figures were rising, and many thought Eldorado would triumph, given time.
It was a very tough decision because it involved the future of a lot of people. The programme had been conceived with an incredibly good pedigree.
We still thought they still won't pull it. They can't pull it. It's too much is invested here. Too many people's lives will be destroyed.
It's kind of more than just another programme. It's going to have a critical impact on the way that the public view the channel. So it's not just an investment in terms of money and time, it's also an investment in the brand. And if it isn't working, therefore, and is going to have a bad impact on that too, then you have to cut your losses and go.
2 weeks later, new producer Corin flew to Spain to deliver Yentob's verdict to the cast and crew.
Coming back was truly awful. It was one of the least pleasant journeys I've ever had.
A lot of us were convinced we were going to be taken off. Old Mum here, again, optimist beyond words. I thought, no, they're going to have the wit to see that if they hang on to it and we all get, a pep talk, we'll be taken on.
I knew immediately from the look on Corin's face, it looked as if Corin had been crying. Because she cared deeply and she'd worked so hard. And it must have been very hard to stand up in front of everybody and say, well, that's it. It's over.
I tried to be as positive as I could about it, and pass on to them, the congratulations and the praise that had been heaped on it, and the thanks for all their efforts. But the bottom line is they were all being sacked, really.
A rush to transmission, misguided casting, a creator who lost his faith, a change of guard at the top. In the end, Eldorado was unable to withstand a series of fatal blows, and over £10 million later, it earned the reputation as the biggest failure in the corporation's history.
The failure of Eldorado made the BBC very cautious about doing another soap opera, and in fact they haven't attempted to do since, because it was such an unmitigated disaster. So I think what they tended to do instead was to look at other programmes and almost turn them into soaps. I mean, dramas like Casualty and subsequently Holby City, which would normally have expected perhaps a season of 10 weeks, have virtually been turned into all the year-round dramas. So they have in fact become the second soap operas.
After just 1 year, the last episode of Eldorado went out with a bang on July the 9th, 1993.
After all that thinking and discovering the idea in the first place, it was very depressing. I mean, I sit here still thinking about it. What it might have been.
Tony Holland has not worked for British television since. He now creates television shows for European TV. Julia Smith died in 1997. The set in Spain is still standing. It's now a hotel. It has taken 10 years for the BBC to regain its nerve. Finally, last summer, for the first time, BBC One overtook ITV in the ratings and held its lead.